I posted a short post earlier and felt the urge to really confess. So here it is. You never forget your first. It's etched into my brain with a white-hot steel blade. For obvious reasons I will give no names, I will give no dates, and certain details will be different. If you please bear with me for a few paragraphs, I promise you'll get what you came here for. The psychological motivations behind my actions are simple enough. I was the product of a broken home due to infidelity. I suffered during much of my middle school years and was constantly defending attacks from those around me. I became withdrawn into the world of literature and science. I devoted hundreds if not thousands of hours to reading and studying. It was the only place I could guarantee my safety and, more importantly, my success. It allowed me to live in an alternate fantasy where my actions could and would eventually lead to real-life dividends. Eventually I grew out of my tormented middle school self. In high school I bloomed into a charismatic, incredibly brilliant young man. I am, for all extensive purposes, a borderline genius. I am not saying I am a true genius. I am just much smarter than the average smart human being. My distrust of humanity strengthened over time. I was surrounded by people who constantly disregarded the emotional well-being of others, engaged in prejudiced behavior and actions, sometimes even openly lauding their own dickishness. I always corrected people on this, and yet no one cared. It hurt me like nothing else could. To see how mean people are towards one another. To see how little humanity cares for those it cannot see suffer. It tears at me like glass. Just like John Coffey in The Green Mile said, mostly I'm tired of people being ugly to each other. I'm tired of all the pain I feel and hear in the world every day. There's too much of it. It's like pieces of glass in my head all the time. Can you understand? I can. I guess from a psychological point of view you can argue I suffer from the opposite of psychosis. It's not lack of empathy, it's an overabundance of it. There's too much greed and self-centered logic. I spent my college days majoring in two things I shouldn't have, psychology and climate science. In retrospect, had I chosen something different I might have gone a different route. Studying climate science drove me to my knees. What I learned festered inside me like a cancerous tumor. Every day I read new research, all the facts continually pointing in the same direction. To stand by and watch, just watch, as corporations, executives, multinationals, politicians, and countless others mercilessly rape the future of our species infuriated me. Psychology only proved to further solidify my understanding of the human condition, which only made me depressed. I realized that so many people are unwilling to stand up towards injustice. There are hundreds of studies that demonstrate strong links between sociopaths and corporate leadership. There are hundreds of studies linking good people to indifferent behavior. There are thousands of studies illustrating the innate selfishness of society. Ironically, groups are more selfish than individuals. Sigh. I'm going to skip some stuff here. It's important, but I'm not stupid. It was shortly after college that it happened. I had just finished one of my many research projects, my first published piece in Abnormal Psych, when one of the candidates I had been interviewing came and spoke with me. Now, this person was someone I genuinely liked. Not in a sexual or physical way, but in a humanistic way. They were a good person, genuine, caring, loving, empathetic, sensitive, considerate, etc., essentially an upstanding human being. This person recounted a story that drove me over the edge. Before this moment, I had been acutely aware of my mental state. I had known and understood, or at least thought I understood, who I was. The story is best summarized as follows from the storyteller's perspective. I've been dating this guy on and off. He's really cool, a little abusive, but other than that real kind to me. A few days ago I received my HIV results. I'm positive. I don't know where I got it from or when it happened. What should I do? Should I tell him? Fast forward 1 week, I told him. Do you know what he said? He said, I know. I've been positive for almost 4 years. You're not the first and you most certainly aren't the last. Straight out of a Law and Order episode for sure. I told my mentor and together we contacted the administration, medical division, and police. I can't tell you how long it took. Long story short, she waived doctor-patient confidentiality, which technically we weren't bound to since I was still working on my master's, and gave her statement. The DID tried to prosecute the individual responsible but couldn't do so on account of multiple technicalities. Lack of intent, hearsay, inadmissible evidence, lack of witness corroboration, my patient's history, etc., etc., et. Fucking cetera. I snapped. It was over and I knew it. The moment I was informed, the walls I had spent a decade forming around my deep-seated resentment towards the filth of mankind came tumbling faster than the Berlin Wall versus an atomic bomb. It's scary how well you can plan a person's demise. It's even more terrifying the smarter you are. There's such a methodical zen to it. This act was to become my first aria. I applied myself to it the same way I did to my research. No minute detail was overlooked. No unforeseen set of circumstances went unplanned for. Every possible contingent I could glean from my plan was accounted for. It was as close to a perfect plan as it could get. I stalked him. For 2 months I learned everything about him. Who he was, where he lived, where he went to middle school, high school, college, where he worked, what his credit score was, who he fucked, when he fucked, where he fucked, his medical records, everything. I could have written this man's biography if you asked me to. By the end of it all I weighed what I knew. The result was obvious. This person provided no real gain towards humanity. He was worse than nothing, because being nothing is not a crime. Being a waste of space, time, and life is not a crime. However, being a man hell-bent on infecting dozens of innocent human beings with a terminal disease is dark. It is wrong on every level. This person provided no benefit to society whilst being an active aggressor against those who might live to accomplish greatness, or at the very least lives worthy of contribution to the human condition. He would receive no punishment, no judgment from a jury of his peers. He was let go. Set free to poison the well of humanity. Who gave him the right to do such a thing? In my mind the same asshat who gave him the right to be so cold gave me the right to return him the favor. I followed him. He was rendezvousing with one of his lovers. I knew he would be done soon. I waited. I waited in the darkness. The cool air bit at my face and I trembled. I knew what was coming. I felt what needed to be done. He came out. I can see him now as if he were standing in front of me. His beach blonde hair tousled, his shirt tucked haphazardly into his navy blue dockers. His sick twisted smile. He liked to walk after he finished. He got pleasure from knowing he had just succeeded in doling out another death sentence, another life full of pain, loneliness, and anguish. He walked right past me in that alley and in the blink of eye I slashed his neck. I cut so deep his spine nearly showed through the cascading river of blood. I grabbed his hair and looked straight into his eyes. The last words he heard were mine. I am the nemesis of evil men, and you, sir, are most definitely worthy of this. I held him there till he died. I never took my eyes off of him. I thought I was ready for what came next. I knew, from a psychological standpoint, that taking a life drains your psyche. I expected it, braced myself, and let it come. But when it did, it overwhelmed me. The fact that I had ended another living person's life cut me deep. It took every ounce of self-control to make it out of there without throwing up or wailing in agony. When I got home I cried. I cried for hours, I cried for days. I fell into a deep depression. I had done what I had set out to do, yet I was filled with doubt. I isolated myself from everything and everyone. I needed to think. Then one night I was watching the news. It was the story about the two men that broke into a home and killed an entire family. The husband was the only one that got away. I remember, in that moment, that very instant, every single negative emotion I had about the night I killed my first victim vanished. I remembered why I had done what I did. I remembered why I needed to keep living on without guilt or without regret. Evil men exist in this world. They always have and always will. It is an anthropological fact. In a world bound by social evolution and social constructs, these individuals have been relegated to two broad spectrums: criminals, rapists, murderers, and heroes, soldiers, cops. But I don't fit in either of these. I share no desire for the long drawn-out inconsequentiality of our legal system. I am my own agent of fate. Morality comes from within. While it may not seem like it, my bar for morality is quite high. You have to be an exceptionally bad person to get my attention. Trust me, the people I've dispatched are some of the worst scum imaginable. The day I make a mistake, or the day I lose sight of this, I'll turn myself in or send myself into the void.